This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, they're back at it today before Mr. Sardonicus's House Judiciary Committee, or if you prefer, Fat Ed Grimley.
I like that a little bit better.
I'll take either. 8 a.m. our time, 8 a.m. Chicago time, the presentation before the House Judiciary Committee by the respective counsels for the House Intelligence Committee. It'll be Barry Burke for committee Democrats, Stephen Castor for Republicans, and then Dana Goldman as well, who you saw before, who's Democrat counsel for House Intelligence Committee. And they're just presenting their cases, and it's just obviously just a show trial, since the decision's been made and mine's already made up.
Yeah, the decision was made long before the report from the House Intelligence moved over to the House Judiciary. Before people read it, Nancy Pelosi came out and made her statement that articles of impeachment are coming, Dan.
Yeah, it was made sometime in the early morning hours, the day after the November 2016 election is when the decision was made. It was just how are we going to get there? And kitchen sink is still the operative approach. To wit, Al Green, the Democrat from Texas, who famously said was posterized by House Intelligence Republicans for saying we need to impeach the president to prevent him from winning re-election. Mm-hmm. Al Green on MSNBC, hey, he wants this to be broader than just abuse of power and those sorts of customary arguments against the president in advance of impeachment. This really goes back to slavery. Until this impeachment hearing is all about dealing with America's original sin of slavery. Listen to this argument.
We have to deal with the original sin. We have to deal with slavery. Slavery was the thing that put all of what President Trump has done lately into motion. It's insidious scion racism. The president has played on racism, and he's used that as a weapon to galvanize a base of support, to mobilize people. We cannot overlook what happened when he came down the escalator and just demeaned people of color, when he talked about the S-hole countries. He has found a way to use ugly words to his benefit and to the detriment of the people who are the object of his words.
Oh, yeah. I smell high crimes and misdemeanors.
So impeachment because slavery. Whew. Representative Green also, I stand corrected. I said the day after the November 2016 election. And actually, according to Representative Green, the impeachment commitment began the day that President Trump announced his candidacy for President of the United States. Remarkable. These are the arguments that are still being made in the modern context as you're supposed to be having an allegedly serious proceeding about one of the most serious things that Congress can do, which is try to remove the head of state. And Al Green is connecting this back to slavery? Where's AOC to connect it back to tax cuts, as she did previously, or emoluments, if she's learned the definition of that word at this juncture?
She's still working on that, I think.
Pam Bondi is a former attorney general for the great state of Florida. She's now a special advisor to the President of the United States. Pam, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks, Dan and Amy. And, one thing Congressman Green forgot to mention, unemployment, African-American unemployment. You know what it is right now? 5.1.
Wow.
One of the lowest ever in our country. Everything that President Trump has done to create jobs, to stop unemployment for our country. But you know what? They are so laser focused on, as you said, from the day he came down that escalator, removing him from office, that they're just blind. They're not blind. They don't care all the incredible things he's done for African-American community, for women, for bringing jobs here, for the USMCA that's still sitting on Pelosi's desk. So sorry, I had to start with that after you quoting Congressman Green.
Yeah, he's very quotable. What is the posture now of the president's legal team? Are you and because Vice President Pence said over the weekend, I'm not sure the Democrats necessarily have the votes to move the articles of impeachment over to the Senate, but you have to be starting from the posture that they likely do and preparing for what a Senate trial is going to look like. Correct?
Well, let me back up a minute. Dan, when this started, what were the Democrats wondering? How many Republicans they could get on their side?
Right.
Now, what they're worried about? How many Democrats they can keep. There are so many moderate districts, Trump country districts, Democrats that I think the majority of them do care about jobs, USMCA that's been sitting on Pelosi's desk. I mean, you guys are in Chicago and know what it is, but our farmers, our timbermen, they know what USMCA is, one of the biggest trade deals that's going to bring 176,000 jobs, $60.2 billion to our economy. And it's just sitting there on her desk. So are they worried if they vote for that? I bet they are, because that's not what their constituents sent them to D.C. to do. They sent them there to protect their families, for lower taxes, everything all these people campaigned on. President Trump is actually doing. 266,000 new jobs in November, 7 million since he was elected. That's what people care about. They care about strengthening our military, NDAA, everything President Trump is doing. So, yeah, they're going to have to be very careful when they're making this decision. So that's why we don't believe it's a foregone conclusion that it will go to the Senate. But if it does, won't be unanimous, that's for sure, on the Democrat side. But if it does, we are fully prepared.
Just was a quick aside on the USMCA, because it has relevance in Chicagoland to manufacturers. Actually, a local trade association here, the Technology and Manufacturing Association, they suggested that the failure to pass USMCA could impact 70,000 Illinois manufacturing jobs that are driven by Canadian and exports to Canada and Mexico, and perhaps result in a layoff of nearly 9% of the manufacturing labor force in the Chicago metro. So if that's the case in Chicago metro, then that's the case in urban centers around the country that have strong manufacturing bases.
That's right. That's right. That has been sitting on her desk for a year, sitting there, because she is so dead set intent on impeaching the president. And I think she thinks that if she goes forward with the USMCA, that it makes the president look good. But what does it really do? Makes our country look horrible by her not, hurts our country by her not getting it off her desk.
All right, so there's 31 Democrats in Trump districts and 13 in, McCain, Romney districts that voted for Trump. I have to tell you, I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday Debbie Wasserman Schultz was on CNN talking about the Pensacola shooting, and I'm so sorry what's happened there in Florida, but they asked her about impeachment, and she didn't seem, she's like, well, I'll have to look at all the articles first. She didn't seem like pro-impeachment, and I found that very strange. Do you think there's others like her?
I think there are at least 31 like her out there. I do. Again, the American people are smarter than, they're not giving us credit, Nadler, Schiff, and Pelosi. They're really not. I mean, we know what's important out there to our families, and that's what's happening. And, yeah, thank you for even mentioning Pensacola. I was going to mention that. We've lost lives, but we have people who victims who went through surgery who are still struggling. So please continue to pray for all those in Pensacola.
Nancy Pelosi may not like the position she's in, and there's actually an interesting piece over the weekend from Todd Purdom in The Atlantic, which is sympathetic to Pelosi, but nonetheless gets to the same point. She's not happy she's in this position that she's in. But there are others, I think, particularly Adam Schiff, who is reveling in the position that he's in and the position that he's putting his party and the country in. And I speak to something the Journal opined upon over the weekend, so did David Harsanyi in the Post, about the surveillance and the release of calls involving reporters, the release of phone records of reporters. This was something that Democrats howled against, and rightly so, once upon a time, but now only because the media is not complaining about it and Democrats aren't complaining about it, just Republicans are, it's suddenly okay.
You know, that's something that still astounds me. The media on this one should be circling the wagons. That they would get a hold of reporters' phone calls, and we're still getting to the bottom of that. But how does any journalist in any form think that that is acceptable? Even if they came about them inadvertently, getting other records, which they shouldn't have been getting, by the way, either, they released them. And it's unreal that the media, the basic core foundation of the media, that every member of the media should be up in arms against this. Conservatives defend liberals when things like this happen. And this, to me, is just shows how blindsided they don't care. They have blinders on. They don't care that these reporters got blindsided. It's really surreal what's happening in our country today, and especially with the media. They should all be joining forces on that issue, Dan.
Is the president at all concerned with, or does he disagree with Mitch McConnell's commitment to move forward with a trial if indeed the articles of impeachment do make it to the Senate?
The president has said all along, the president has said, well, first of all, we know the president is innocent. The president did nothing wrong. This is based on one phone call on July 25th, and I think the world was shocked. I think the Democrats were shocked when we released the transcript. You know why?
Brilliant.
Because it showed the president did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. But as you said, this has been predetermined since 2016. How interesting Pelosi came out and held the big dog and pony show press conference. We were hoping she'd talk about USMCA, but she ordered them to proceed with articles of impeachment without hearing a shred of evidence coming over from the committee. Right. So the only reason they were going forward was because they had the political power. It's been an utter failure. And yes, President Trump has done nothing wrong. President Trump said, the transcript speaks for itself. President Zelensky said, I was never pressured. Aid was released when President Zelensky was elected. The Ukraine there was a lot of corruption in the Ukraine and with Ukrainians. But President Zelensky came in, seemed like a good man. He had to prove himself, and he did. What did he do? He changed Parliament. He changed the Prosecutor General. He started doing good things for Ukraine, and that's what our country needed to see. Donald Trump, that's been his promise from the day he got elected, to clean up corruption around the world. So, we are in a very good, when you have the truth on your side, the facts on your side, the Constitution on your side, the law on your side, which is what we have. We feel very strongly about our case, but I guess you saw our general counsel, Pat Cipollone, a wonderful man. He wrote a letter to Jerry Nadler, and he said, we've had enough of this charade, basically, that Republicans weren't even allowed in these closed hearings. They cherry-picked evidence, and I use that lightly. It was all hearsay, speculation, assumptions, presumptions. They used all that to get to where we are now. And it's a highly partisan, unconstitutional attempt to impeach our president. And so whatever, at this point, what we're saying is whatever course that you've chosen, go ahead and do it. The president said, you want to impeach me? Do it fast. You know why? So we can get to a fair trial in the Senate and our country can get back to business. Well, and maybe finally these people can start working together. But are we ready to go? We sure are. And as far as the Senate, we want to hear from Hunter Biden. We want to hear from the whistleblower. We want to hear from Adam Schiff. Because this is Adam Schiff's baby. Yet he's not even coming over this morning to present it like Ken started in the Clinton proceedings. Don't you find that? I mean, this is Adam Schiff's show.
Well, you never know which hat he's wearing. Sometimes he's a special prosecutor. Sometimes he's defense counsel. Sometimes he's counsel for the prosecution. So you just never know.
Judge, jury, and executioner, you mean?
Yeah. Although I got to tell you, it's fun listening to Jerry Nadler say that Hunter, the whistleblower, Schiff, they're not relevant. This is the same guy who brought John Dean before his House Judiciary Committee 6 months ago, to start this whole sort of theater of the absurd with respect to people that have no pertinent knowledge opining about whether or not the president should be impeached. It's basically, verbal op-eds back and forth.
Right. Not only are they relevant, they're crucial witnesses for us. because they show what's happening, the real corruption, and they should all be very concerned. Adam Schiff should be concerned, and that's why I believe he's not reported. This is his report. Ken Starr in the Clinton proceedings, 1,496 days. Ken Starr had that report. Before he brought it over, he presented it. You know what they did with Donald Trump? 73 days. Yet Schiff himself isn't even presenting it. Ken Starr brought it over. He's bringing two of his lower-level lawyers. Nothing's wrong with Goldenberg, but the lawyers, this is Adam Schiff's report. Yet he does not want to be cross-examined by our Republican members of Congress.
Yeah, he wants better lawyers representing him. That makes sense to me, in a sense. She is Pam Bondi. She's a special advisor to the president, of course, former Attorney General of the state of Florida. Pam, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy. Have a great day.
You too.
You too. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.